Dig it. Welcome to Six Guys and You on Street News Now. My name is Lee Michaels. I'm your host, and we have a fantastic show for you tonight. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, stop right now and press the share button, the subscribe button, and talk about us. Come in and do a little comments on whatever the topic is that we're speaking on. We want you to be a part of the show. Without you, there is no show. Plain and simple. Okay. So join in the conversation, whether you like it or not. Give us your comments. We'll be able to see them, and we'll put your comments right on the screen. Like, share, and subscribe. And tell all your friends about Street News Now and this crazy show that comes on at this time, whatever time zone you're in, you know what time it is now. It's 6 o'clock or 6:08 here on the West Coast. So make a note of that. And join us every Thursday night for this show. Tonight, we're going to talk about some great stuff. And we got our normal crew here, except for where is Buck Wow? Put out an APB for Bucky. Bucky is MIA again. Want to make sure he's okay and haven't been kidnapped and transported over to Ukraine or something. You never know with that guy. That being said, here he is, live and in living color, Mr. Chris Bass. What's up, Chris?
What's up, fearless leader? And a boom shakalaka to you and everybody on the cohort on the table here. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm in LA today. And getting ready to head out tomorrow to Coachella.
Okay, I see you got the shirt and tie on, man. I was like, good night. You get ready to go to a
I want to come up out of this because I've had this on since about 6 a.m. this morning.
I know you're tired.
You have no idea.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I just forgot. I've been in it so long. I said, the hell with it,
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm going out to Coachella for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for the festivities out there. We're doing transportation for the wonderful corporation known as Red Bull. So we've been hired by Red Bull.
Nice,
and,
nice.
That one of the qualifications is you had to be full of shit. So that's how I got in.
Well, top of the line. I can only see like a lot of people behind you. It's like, oh, he must really be full of shit.
He needs a Red Bull up in with his
exactly right. Yeah, hear his system out.
So Dr. Ron likes that one. You like that one? Hard. It wasn't that funny.
I think it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Yeah. It's a good thing you're in the Chicago area because you're about to get Chris rocked, okay? Funny guy, okay.
Yeah,
and here's the professor, ladies and gentlemen.
Good
What's
evening,
up, Reggie?
Good evening. I think what I'm going to do, though, I'm going to find some old videos, and because I got to come up and be like my boy, the late Professor Irwin Corey.
Oh.
Man,
right.
I have to just come up and to address some of these chaotic things the way the professor would do it. And then I might even study some of those things in living color, and get my boy Oswald Bates, and start putting down some heavy diatribe. I mean, some, what is it? Diatribe. Well, whatever it is, however I'm coming at you, I want you to know it's going to be phonetically. Did I say is that phonetic? I mean, well, correctly. Well,
correctly. As long as you got the funk on it.
Absolutely. We're still in funk. We're still inside of Funkentelechy. We're still doing what we need to do. But I'm just glad to be with the brothers. And as Diana Ross said in one of her songs, I'm coming out. I'm coming out.
Okay. Welcome. Just come on out.
Yeah, you're right.
Just
Yeah, you're right.
come on. With that, here's our resident Buck Wild. What's up, buddy?
It's funny. It's funny how that song became the gay coming out anthem.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah, in fact, that really introduced her big time, or she was accepted big time in the gay community, I think, because of that song.
Yes,
And then she became the queen of dance music
yeah.
in the
She
gay
wrote
community.
The anthem. She wrote
Yeah.
the anthem. Yeah.
Wrote it. Yep. Between that and Donna Summer, she was big in the gay community too. Disco era.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, I thought YMCA was one of their favorites too.
It was.
See, y'all done slipped into something. I'm taking that back. I ain't even saying
I don't want it no more.
You're not coming
I
out
don't even
now.
want it no more.
No, I don't want to come out. I'm gonna say why I am.
I'm gonna say right where
Come
I
on.
am. No, I
Right.
ain't coming out.
It was like, hey, wait a minute, that shit didn't sound right.
Hey, what's the- you know,
I
I,
gave him an
wanted to
opportunity.
say WTF, but I said, hey, you know, I had to be cool. So,
Well, we support you,
Oh.
my brother. Whatever you want to do at this point in time in your life.
yeah,
What is it? You're still my brother.
no. That's one of them things. That's one of them things that Mike said. That's one of the things you never should
Never
say
say
to a brother.
to a brother.
And I'm taking
That's right. That's right.
Hey,
Never ever.
because I mentioned the thing, and then he come Buck with something wild. So I and right off the bat, I said, "Oh, SHIT. I shouldn't have did that." So here you go. I said, "Here you go." You know, I'm just trying to say I'm back. You know, I'm back. I'm
Right.
trying. You know, I'm feeling. You know what I've been going through. I'm trying
Yes.
to.
Right.
But then the next thing you know, I'm coming out. I done messed around and said the wrong thing. I'm talking about, I'm carrying the
Yeah.
rainbow flag and stuff. No.
Well,
You're on the
one-
stage
one
by
thing-
yourself.
One thing for sure, Professor. If you go to Florida, you don't have to say it out loud.
Well, okay.
Anybody got a
Well, I
drum
think that
roll?
depends on what part of Florida you go to.
Yeah, because
You're down in the
in Florida
Keys.
they passed the law that says you can't say I'm gay. You can't
Oh.
acknowledge anything about gay, being
Wow.
in the state of Florida. They just had a whole big news thing about that this past week. Was it last week? But they were talking about, man.
Wow.
And then New York
Well-
came out and said all the gays can come to New York. You ain't got to stay in Florida.
There you go.
That's headline news there, for real, for real.
Oh,
They went through a whole thing about, how they made it against the law in Florida to even talk about it, and then New York said, we'll take them. and then the brother went down in the subway and did something crazy. I don't know.
right.
I don't know if that don't have anything to do with it, but hey, it's just timing, okay? Wow.
So I'm back to being Reggie Miles. Okay, I ain't
Okay.
whatever that stuff is. I ain't in. I'm back to
You say
being.
you ain't in it.
No, I ain't in none of that.
I ain't got you. I got
The
you.
Professor Stepper.
Yeah, Professor Stepper. That's right. Bump Diana Ross and the song she made. I ain't gonna even repeat it. Man. Bump that.
So that record is no longer in your
In
repertoire
my
of
vocabulary.
playlists. huh?
So, it's just I just don't want to be associated with that. It's a good song, but don't please. Never mind.
Say,
Pasadena.
never mind. I know that's right, brother.
All right. Well, let's
Yeah.
get the show popping here. I think we've had a good laugh here at the top of the show.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you wanna launch it off into some serious topic?
Oh yeah, why not? And then we'll have some more fun later on.
Sure.
And so, but the great thing about this topic is personal to me is that when I hear the name Harold Washington, it always brings a smile to my face. And here's a man who literally changed the game of politics locally and beyond. Harold Washington, Chicago's first black mayor, would have turned 100 years old tomorrow, and tomorrow, of course, being Friday. There was a centennial celebration of his life at the Harold Washington Library this past Tuesday. Also, there's a documentary coming out called Punch 9 for Harold Washington. And he was elected in 1983. The first time I ever got a chance to vote was for the mayoral position for Chicago, and it was Harold Washington I was voting for. And I'm standing in line with the older gentleman, and they're patting me on the back as I, hey, this young buck, get ready to vote. You know, you're going to vote for Harold? And I said, yeah. And it felt like a rite of passage, and it was. To have that camaraderie and to see older people, of course, who have voted before I did, and it was my first time vote. I never forgot that. They were very kind and very nice and told me the history about what voting means. Also, during this time, you know, my family and me would go on vacation in the summertime like most families would. And usually, this is about like the 70s going to early 80s. Usually, if you say you're from Chicago, somebody do this because of Al Capone. And that was going on for a while with us until in the 80s when Harold Washington was elected mayor. And this is about, I think by the time we went to New York and we said we were from Chicago, the first thing was asked of us is, how's Harold? So again, you just changed the complexity of a city going from, back in the day of, you know, gangsterism to something brand new with Harold Washington. I remember distinctly being a mere youth, watching Harold debate. In his debates, I literally had to have a dictionary and a thesaurus next to me because he had used words I never ever heard before. Like I remember one debate, well, the question is moot. I'm like, what the hell is moot? And I had to go in the dictionary to find out what moot was and all these different words. Walking thesaurus, great knowledgeable man. Got a chance to shake hands with him because back in the day, talk about the 80s, you used to have this thing called Live Aid, you know, for people, the various supports of supporting different functions. This was, of course, over the pond in Britain and here in America. So you had Live Aid and Farm Aid. And then at one point, they had what they called Hands Across America, where everybody was holding hands literally from coast to coast. And here in Chicago, I'm downtown with my friends. We're downtown like Michigan and Wacker Drive, where the bridge is. And here comes Harold shaking everybody's hand. And again, it was one of those things where you knew you were in the presence of greatness. David Axelrod was the strategist behind Harold Washington getting reelected. And I saw in my mind the baton being passed between him and Barack Obama. Now, locally, it's never easy as a politician to have a majority of people liking you because, of course, people don't like you. But Harold had the ability to be liked by the majority of everyone. Jerry the Iceman Butler said it best. The ability to walk with kings and queens and still have the common touch. That's what Harold Washington had. And it was definitely shown by the way he comported himself. And then you connect David Axelrod in the future down the road to Barack Obama when he was running for the presidency. David Axelrod was his strategist, the same position he had with Harold. And then you saw, in my opinion, locally what Harold did here in Chicago, and then you fast forward to what Barack did nationally. Being able to be that light and be that accepted by the majority of everyone. And it's funny that they both had David Axelrod to help them out in their causes. So some of the people that have become mayors of various cities over time, even before and during Harold's time, because once again, he got elected in 1983, you have people like Coleman Young of Detroit, Maynard Jackson of Atlanta, Tom Bradley. Huh?
Maynard Jackson.
That's what I say.
I thought you said Menard. It was Maynard.
Maynard? Okay, well, you were in Atlanta, so you would know. So I'm sorry, Maynard Jackson of Atlanta, Tom Bradley of LA, Wilson Good in Philadelphia. And in 1986, you had the first African-American woman, Jessie M. Ratley of Newport News, Virginia. And of course, David Dinkins in New York by the time he hit 1989. I think most politicians should take a page from what Harold Washington was. The ability to actually embrace the people. The ability to, once again, have a candidate who you actually believe in, not because it's the lesser of two evils. You have a candidate who actually cared about the people who voted for him. And that's what comes to mind when I think about Harold Washington. And Harold Washington would have been 100 tomorrow. Happy belated birthday, and happy birthday in passing, and heavenly birthday, because the man literally changed the game in politics. And
Absolutely. I was in, let me get us all back up here. I was in Chicago at WBMX when he was elected. And one of the things that I remember most is all of the black radio stations in Chicago, WGCI, VON, JPC, BMX, all would have Harold Washington on when he became mayor once a month and gave him access to the community. People were able to call in and ask questions direct to the mayor. And it was sensational. I remember, people calling in and saying, hey, Mr. Mayor, I've been calling down to City Hall for 2 months trying to get this pothole in the middle of my street taken care of. And he would come in and say, what's your address? And he would look over to one of his assistants and say, get a truck out there right away. That kind of stuff. Immediate reaction. And then people would call in a week later or next month and say, thank you, Mr. Mayor. They came out and took care of those potholes. So I took that concept to San Francisco, to KMEL, which was a top 40 station. And I went over and met with the mayor. What was her name?
Feinstein
or Boxer? Which one was it? Feinstein?
I think it was Feinstein when you were there,
yeah. And she liked the idea, but she balked on it. She didn't follow through. I was going to give her the radio station once a month, come on and talk to the community. And she moonwalked away from the opportunity. And I thought that was poor judgment. And I don't know if it was her or her people, or maybe they were afraid to have her on that kind of open mic stage or what. But I think that's what politicians need to do. They need to be in front, listening to the people and responding to it immediately. That, to me, I still think about it today. But Harold was not afraid to do that. And he was on 4 or 5 stations simultaneously. We simulcast.
Get out of here. I didn't know that part.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So
That's
the listeners
unusual.
from each one of those stations heard the mayor at the same time.
That's unusual. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. That was part of, and if I remember correctly, we did that before he was elected and then after. So we brought the community together to hear this man. And I mean, it was shocking and devastating. Once he passed away, I was like devastated.
I have a question. What my perception, half my family is in Chicago, South Side. And my perception of Chicago has always been that everybody hates each other. White people hate black people hate white people, everybody hates Mexicans. How does a black mayor get elected in an environment like that?
It's all about the math.
Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, was that what 18, 19% black population in the metro at that time? I don't know what it is now.
Is that enough to get you elected?
Apparently so.
Well,
If you get the majority of African Americans to vote, you would see a totally different perspective across the country. I'm sorry, Ron, for jumping in. But like Lee said, I mean, when you study numbers in media and what we actually have at hand, we don't take advantage of. And that goes back to Stacey Abrams and what she was able to do to get 2 ministers elected to the Senate. It was all about galvanizing people to go out and vote. And, I've said this on this show several times. It was great to hear older African Americans when President Obama was running saying that was the first time that they voted, but it was actually shameful.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to go back and look at the practice of why we're always behind, is because we weren't voting. We didn't see that as a priority. in the electoral process. I'm sorry, Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to address that. During the time that Harold Washington was able to mastermind that election, their City Hall was always, very ethnically geared towards other races. The Irish took care of each other, the Italians took care of each other, and they were all, galvanized together for, the administration that was in place. When Harold began the move towards City Hall, he did some, because I was involved in politics at the time, so I saw what he did. He actually partnered up with many community leaders and many Black politicians, and they kept it real low key. They didn't, let the left hand know what the right hand was doing. At the time, we had a Cook County board president, George Dunn, who turned over, when he resigned, he turned it over to Stroger. See, all these moves were strategically planned underneath the table. So Stroger was a very powerful, the daddy, not the son, was a very powerful, individual in Cook County. And then they had all of the Black congressmen like Gus Savage, who was a congressional congressman. And there were many others that were covertly guaranteeing votes to be able to guarantee this election. So it was and then they had to have some other skin colored folks too, a part of it, because you couldn't do it just all with one race. You had to have a multitude. And Harold, politics has always been a thing where you're going to make promises, but Harold's one of the people that wanted to keep his promises and keep his word to people that he made promises to. Now, he was already I want to say in the Congress, wasn't he, Chris? Wasn't he in the Congress at the time?
Right before he went for the mayor.
Right, yes. He was already in Congress. So he already had a base, of strong supporters that loved Harold. Okay. He was very charismatic. He was, very, very unifying. And when everybody came out for him and produced the votes that they did for him, it shocked a lot of people, because they don't know how this happened. Like, how do we go to sleep on this? We didn't see this move coming, and they didn't see the move coming. And that's what happened when he put that deal together, where he was, people were like, hey, here's the votes we promised, and it was enough to win the election. And that's exactly how he did it. He pieced this puzzle together very systematically, very covertly. And when he did it, it allowed him to be able to get in position. And once he got in office, he was able to, share services, not just on the north side of town, not in the affluent sides of town like Bridgeport, but he also shared some, businesses, opportunities for other companies and minorities to be able to do business. Like I remember they used to do a lot of the concerts on Navy Pier when it was still a wooden pier. They called it the Taste of Chicago. Wasn't a big thing on out by the fountain. It was like straight up down the pier. Okay. And man, he used to bring in Black sound companies. Like, that's how Ernie Green was able to Yep, and was able to get the contract for all the city for the events. I mean, he shared opportunities that they would not have had before. And a lot of people thought that he was going to be hurtful for the city. They were afraid. They were very afraid in the beginning. But after he saw that he was a fair and he ruled fairly, you know, then the fear started to decrease, you know, and how he ran the city.
Hey, Ron, you know, one of the things that you said, I thought that was paramount. And I'm more than sure that it happens in the other 49 states, but in the state of Illinois, it's all about power broker, you know, and that's how you get it done. Now, part of the power brokering that they do is galvanizing people to get them to the polls, okay? And they're delivering turkeys on Thanksgiving, they're delivering stuff on Christmas. They knew how to get to the constituency in a way that they didn't wait on them to go to the polls. They were actually driving them to the polls. In St. Clair County, where my dad was an alderman for 25 years, there was a Ford dealer, white owned, of course. Excuse me. And the guy that owned it, his name was Bo Boykman or Bo Beckman or something like that, right? And so what the Democrats would do, election day, they would go and get 25 or 30 of those 10 or 12 passenger vans, and they would go and get these people from the projects, from the African-American, low-income communities, and bring them to the polls. You see what I'm saying? They weren't waiting for them to come themselves. They went and got these people. And that's what the power brokers did. A lot of them were county commissioners, township supervisors. These were the people throughout the state of Illinois who were actually making these monumental moves to get voters there. A lot of states don't understand that if you have to literally go get that voter, put them in a van and bring them to the polls. You see what I'm saying? Now, when we go back to number 45 and he's talking about all this corruption and, you know, and missteps with election ballots being tossed and so on and so forth, I'm not saying any of that is not true. But the fact of the matter is, see, they never see power brokering at that level because that it's more county based. It's not statewide.
Local.
It's done statewide, but it's really county based. It's done by townships. Every in the state of Illinois, there's townships from the top to the bottom. They work those townships, they work those county boards, and that's how they get the votes. Yeah. It's really just that simple.
Yeah. I thought it was Illinois. I thought the S was silent.
Whatever corrections that you make tonight, you feel free to do it. The people who listen to the show will understand what the hell we were talking about. So,
yeah, you know,
it's funny though.
That's true because he got on me about what I say. It was like it's Menard, not Maynard.
Wait a minute, I'm really gonna get him. So if you want to be a dictionary, then go ahead and do it. It's okay.
Where is the rib shot?
Rib shot.
That's the wrong one. All I got to say is y'all really deep. Y'all are really deep on this Harold Washington thing. And you know, my question is, was there any person of color that ran for mayor before Harold Washington?
I don't know. I wasn't in Chicago.
Yeah, I wasn't there. I don't know.
I didn't come until
so
late 79.
It's safe to say that the presence of Harold Washington would be somewhat similar to what the presence that Barack Obama presented when he ran. And then there's another kinship to the city that was directly to the east of Chicago. They had a brother named Hatcher.
Yep, Gary.
Who got elected. Yep. Oh, yeah. Okay, so at that in Gary, at that particular time, Black mayors were being elected strategically in a lot of cities across the nation.
Yep.
And you know, and all of you guys, I'm gonna have to give y'all the slap on the hand. Because you all know that black radio had put them up in there. And Harold Washington, he was in this town. He was going to galvanize the town because he was perceived to be a messiah in this town. I told y'all that before. Whenever we have this perception of that there's going to be a messiah, nothing is going to stop us from coming out.
But think about this for a minute. Think about this, Reggie, Professor. At that time, there were no urban and urban AC designated formats. Every African-American station was 8 to 80, blind, crippled, or crazy. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you didn't have just the station for the kids, and now the adults have theirs. So you got a larger audience to contend with. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, listen, and I'm agreeing with all of that, because the movement, and I've said this before, the movements of these black mayors being strategically put in all these cities, and these stations that were like, well, they were like playing black music and galvanizing the black community and this, that, and other. It was probably a lot more ownership then of, you know, minorities within these stations. I think, now this is my theory, that's my conspiracy, that them mayors and all that stuff led to them going back into the back room saying, well, look, we got to come up with this Telecommunications Act. We got to own all this stuff, because if we leave it out here for these people to get these stations and talk to their own people, they gonna start putting their own politicians they're gonna start putting their people in these different offices everywhere. It happened in Atlanta, it happened in Los Angeles, it happened in New York, it happened in Gary, it happened in Chicago. And all of these, and in every one of these cities where there was a person of color, there was a dominant black urban AC, whatever y'all call it. Whatever you want to call it, there was some station that was primarily mostly black. Because, you know, this was before iHeart, which was Clear Channel. This was before all the consolidation.
Absolutely.
And remember, it was before all of that.
It was
Bigger Evers.
It was the
down
black
in Mississippi.
station.
It was Evers. Was it Mega, or what was
his brother?
His brother.
Was the brother.
Yeah.
So I'm on that conspiracy type thing. So, you know, but the reason why we came out, because the perception of Harold Washington was he was like a messiah. You know, that's the only two things that's gonna make black people vote. When they see the coming of Jesus, or when they see some type of messiah, someone that's good, that's in a position to save them, they're going to galvanize, they're gonna come out.
Well, JPC is pretty much responsible for that. You know, company, because they were getting that message out to magazines that were sitting on coffee tables and nightstands across the country. But what were you going to ask, Sammy, in reference to format?
Who?
Buck, I'm sorry.
Oh.
You were saying something. Yeah.
So you said that back then there was no urban AC and blah, blah, blah.
They weren't designated as that. They weren't called.
Wait,
they weren't.
so
there were none.
Well, I was just curious. So JPC, VON, GCI, VAZ were all playing the same exact music?
VAZ didn't exist. It was WBMX.
BMX.
Yeah.
They were all playing the same music?
Pretty much. JPC,
basically across the country.
BMX, GCI, JPC, all were mainstream urban stations.
Going after the same
black
audience.
stations.
Wow.
That's what they were called. They were the black stations.
See,
that
I didn't
meant
grow up
that
in
they
an
did
area that
everything
had
black.
I didn't grow up in an area that had
change. It didn't change until I developed the format in '85, and then BMX became the first urban AC in America. The second one was Magic in DC, and then it spread like wildfire from there. It might have been the third one. Might have been
what year
in
was that?
Baltimore, 85, 86.
Wow.
Yep. We did a research study in Chicago, and perceptual study, and we found a hole.
That was
And
the
when
last. That was the last vestige of great radio. Because how many
Yeah.
different owners were there in the city? You know, what didn't Sunderland still own BMX?
Yes.
And then Johnson still owned
Still on
JPC.
JPC.
And then Globe had a piece of 13 of GCI.
GCI,
They
yeah,
had-
Globetrotter, or had it changed to, what was it after Globetrotter?
It
Not
was
Clear
it
Channel.
was Gannett.
Gannett.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
Gannett at that
yeah.
time.
It was Gannett. And so when did Barry get BMX? Was it after Harold or was it at the beginning of Harold?
No, Harold was gone.
When Barry got it?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Purvis,
Because the station
Purvis-
was closed, I think, if I want, 86.
okay.
Yeah.
So Purvis was the only black owner at that time
Yeah.
with
Well,
VON.
No, JPC, I think Johnson was still
And
there.
Johnson. It was two
Yeah.
black owners. Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I
Because
think
Tom was over there at that time.
But
Right.
VON at that time was like half. They were splitting the time with the Polish community.
Exactly.
Okay, so that just those two alone had put pressure on the minds of the powers that be, that they were saying, well, hey, we can't let these people start getting these stations, because they'll start parlaying that into political power.
No question. I think there were some broadcasters and investment bankers saw the power of radio that was being utilized in minority communities. And same thing in the Hispanic community.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing similar things, on all Hispanic stations.
And they getting over now.
Oh yeah,
They getting over now. They can have them all.
So I'm waiting. I hope I'm still alive long enough to see black and brown come together and to become the majority minorities in America. Because if you put those two numbers together, it's huge numbers. And I'm not saying that in a negative aspect, but in terms of fairness, so that America can begin to look like what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard though. Black folks can barely get along with each other. And talking about getting along with another race, I was like,
But I'm just saying, if you don't plant the seed, the grass ain't going to grow.
Well,
If you don't understand the power of the numbers, then you will be standing in the corner by yourself forevermore.
Streaming is the problem that's kind of come in the way of that whole dream to be a reality. So you may not be around to see that, Lee, respectfully, because the streaming has once again become the new divide in the program. Everything's going to the cloud. Basically, with the iHeart app, Sirius XM, and these other Spotify, Pandora, and the list goes on, it's divided it up. Because going back to what Professor was talking about in the original stages of galvanizing that vote, and you had no problems walking in and taking a black politician and getting interviewed. It didn't matter what they were playing. If it was the gospel segment, if it was the morning show, if it was the blues, it didn't matter.
I think you had conscious management running those stations during that time. You had black general managers and black sales managers and program directors and operation managers and music directors and air personalities that understood what the community needed, because we were out in the community. We were in the nightclubs. We were in the parades. We would go to the shopping malls. And if there was a disaster in the neighborhood, the first people came to help were the radio stations. We would do the fundraisers to help, rebuild a house or whatever.
What's scary is that as radio becomes less and less important to people, what's going to happen to that sense of community?
I think
there's
part of what we're doing right now will help fill that void. If enough people get online that are socially conscious and willing to make the sacrifice and dedicate some time and effort into doing some good communications.
But Lee, what Buck is saying is paramount, because what we're doing now is we're on a different platform.
But that's all right. That's where people are now.
Right now,
We are where they are.
Either you
Different
take this platform and
in
return
different
it,
cities.
right? Either
Yeah.
you take this platform and return it to terrestrial, or you lose it. And that's what I said. Buck's making an excellent point there, because how do you take this back to terrestrial?
Well, then again, I don't even know if terrestrial wants it at this point. Where
That's why I said ownership.
Right, they gutted all the news departments and radio stations, as we all know. The disconnected community we just talked about, and I would not be remiss sitting here, reminiscing about Harold and everything else, had not been for my personal mentor that got me into talk radio, a guy named Ty Wansley. God rest his soul. And Ty used to work for JPC, for Johnson Publishing. He had a Sunday morning program called 95
GCI.
Live. Right. Exactly, right. Exactly. And there was the spoken word on terrestrial radio. I mean, it was strong, very strong. It connected to people. As we all know, being broadcasters, the one-on-one, when you talk to that one person, it's amazing the connectability you have as a broadcaster, being on the microphone and connecting to one person, whether it's any format that you like to listen to. In this situation, we're talking about a possibility of a black man candidate running for the mayorship of Chicago. And every Sunday, these people will call in and get a chance to know Harold and everything else, and go back to what I said about having the comment touch. That went a long way, extremely long way. So the disconnect we have right now is damn near, you can't repair it. But through streaming and through people having their phones and able to get online, and once again, not just here locally, but going coast to coast and beyond, it's a different game now. And I think the terrestrial, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Terrestrial radio don't even want to be good, don't want to be entertaining, don't want to be engaging. That the program directors tell their people, shut up, nobody wants to hear you talk, play the music.
Give a perfect example.
That's what they're being told to
I give a perfect example. So the news department, as we know, has been gutted all the way out completely. You probably have one person doing news for the cluster of stations, say for iHeartMedia. So say you listen to the news. A young man was shot, 21 years old, in South Side Chicago. He is now dead. This is brought to you by Arm & Hammer. I kid you not. It goes right. They do one story, go right to the spot.
If you have a newscast,
right? If you have
one,
right.
But Chris, let's go back for a minute, because you guys always, talk about Chicago and Ty Wansley. So Lee, did you tell them where Ty Wansley started?
In St. Louis.
Okay. Now the thing of it is, it was almost like candy for a kid to get to Chicago.
Yep.
Because he didn't have that audience that had that I want to say, I don't know if I want to say mentality, but he didn't have what he got in Chicago. Opened up everything. He was groomed for it. It just wasn't in St. Louis to do. St. Louis wasn't at that level to go in and recognize African-American leaders and champion them. And then Ty gets to Chicago, thanks to Leo Buzzard taking him away from us. And now he's a kid in a candy store. And that's where that success came from. Because like I said, once again, he was doing it in St. Louis, but there was nobody to do it with.
Yeah.
We had never had a black mayor before. When nobody was even talking about a black mayor. There was a guy by the name of Freeman Bosley, who was the head alderman, and that was about the height of it in St. Louis. I don't even remember if it was one or two other aldermen on the board in St. Louis that were African American.
Didn't you eventually get a black mayor in East St. Louis?
Yeah, you got Carl Officer and so on and so forth. But I'm talking about going, and then Freeman Bosley Sr.'s son became the mayor after that. And then that's kind of when St. Louis got into it. But at this point, now that whole African-American movement is thinned out, because the support you need is now gone to the counties. Because they've left town just like the YTs, as Professor would say. They're out.
That's true. It's true. So we're kind of spread out. Yep. So, there are always problems, and then there are solutions. Sometimes the solutions are embraced and sometimes they're not. More importantly, I think when there are opportunities to unite and bring people together, there's a certain amount of resistance from some people because they don't understand the math and the strength of numbers. And that's how you win. Okay. Now let's go back real quick to the last presidential election. It was historic in so many different ways. Biden got the most votes of any president ever in history. And so did the loser. He had what, 74 million? That in itself was amazing. And I kept saying, I think we need to do a recount on that because I can't believe it's 74 million dumbasses in America that voted for this clown.
Well, the population's gone up.
Well, yeah, but
That's why.
But he was able to galvanize and get people probably had never voted before, and they came out, but it wasn't enough. So between what 80 and 174, that's a lot of damn people that voted. It was historic. It broke records, and I think that's part of the reason why he still can't accept defeat because he, in his mind, I made history. I had 74 million, and how can you lose and have 70? That was more than what Barack had. See, that's the mindset. But the fact of the matter is, there were more people that didn't want him than wanted him, and that was the end result. Bottom line. So, if your messaging is on point, you win. If you reach enough people with the right message, and sometimes the right message ain't a good message, but if it's a message that people want to hear and embrace, they will vote for you. Period. Now, before we move on to our next topic, and I love the fact that, Chris, you brought up Harold Washington because we should not let that name fade to black, and we can't because he was a great mayor, and a great person. I got a chance to meet him numerous times, and he was always a complete gentleman, respectful for anybody in the room. He didn't turn his back to anyone. So that's a real winner.
Yep.
But moving forward, we've got a midterm election coming up. I think it's a strong possibility that the Democrats are going to lose. Why? Why do I think that? Because I think our messaging is wrong.
Because they lose all the time.
Well, no, I'm not going to say that. No, but right now, the loudmouth is the Republican Party, and they have positioned and painted Democrats into a corner again. Yep. And because of what's happening with the war, with the gas prices, the economy is beginning to shift. It's going to have an impact on those who don't truly understand what's really going on. It's easy for the Republicans now to say, see, the old man doesn't know what he's doing. The economy is going south, but hey, ladies and gentlemen, let me explain something to you. The economy doesn't go south overnight. Things that happened 3, 4, 5 years ago is what we're feeling now.
Yep.
That's how that works. It's not an overnight thing. And
it's like everything happened all at once. What do they call that? Like a domino effect, or just everything just happened all at once is just like the perfect storm. That's the word.
No, but that's not the way it works. The things that we were doing 3, 4, 5 years ago is impacting what's happening today. There was a lot of money being put out there. Now the feds have to put a stop on it. You got to cap the growth because it's getting out of control. So that's called inflation.
Yeah, they didn't want to do that for a long time because Wall Street, they've got power.
Yeah, and because Trump I think had his cronies, in the banking world, although most of them didn't like him because they had already been burned by him through bankruptcies. And that's why he was doing business with Russia and any other criminal that he could get money from. And he was trying to get money from North Korea and China and anywhere else. The China. So the thing we got to look out for is this. What are the top 5 things that impact most of Americans? The cost of goods, okay, number 1. So whether it's gas, food, water, whatever, when you are on a fixed income or a limited income, you feel that impact first. Okay, gas in California is anywhere from a low end of $5.39 to $6.89. I saw one gas station one time it was hit $8.
Whoa, come on.
I'm serious. I'm dead serious. And then when you look at housing costs in California, you can get a nice studio apartment anywhere from $2,500 to $3,800. A studio. I'm not talking about a 1-bedroom with a bath and a balcony.
Those are New York prices.
Yeah, exactly. In some cases maybe worse. Same thing up in the Bay Area. And I mean in Bakersfield, you're going to pay $1,500-$1,800 for something like that. So that's what impacts
He said
people's
Bakersfield.
voting. Yeah.
That's a shithole right there. Stockton.
Victorville, yeah, I mean, there's small towns in California are feeling the same thing. And it's just, that's what make people vote one way or the other. The poor people and middle class people feel the crunch right now. And I say to the people in Kentucky, what has Mitch McConnell ever done for your poor ass? Okay, you're still living in a shotgun shack with a blue tarp on your roof because you don't have the money to replace the roof on your house. You haven't had a job since the last coal mine job that you had or whatever you were doing. And you're still waiting for this guy to bring home some bacon.
The thing is,
nothing new.
My guess, and I'm guessing here on the appeal for Kentuckians on with Mitch McConnell is the fact that he's on TV all the time and he's got this swag as they see it, and he's representing he's making people realize that Kentucky people ain't nothing to F with, like a pride thing just because he's Kentuckian and he's this big bad in Washington. I think it might be just a pride that no matter what he does or what he says or what their situation is, seems like they're going to get behind him. They'll stay behind him just because they're proud to have somebody from Kentucky as the whatever he is in Washington.
Yeah. Okay.
Leader.
So the bottom line on that situation or that mindset is very simple. It's called ignorance.
Yes, absolutely.
They're ignorant to the facts. I mean, the plain and simple fact is Mitch McConnell is doing nothing for his home state, but roadblocking. You're telling me that, you're going to sandbag on a infrastructure bill. The roads in Kentucky are just as bad as any other state.
As anywhere else in the country. That's crazy.
They need bridges repaired or replaced.
Yep.
Yeah. So when you open up and disperse these kind of funds, the trickle down from that is amazing. The guy that gets a job on one of those, infrastructure deals or a new road or whatever, repair, he's got to go out and buy some work shoes, some socks, some pants, belts, underwear, long underwear, hats, coats. So the retail industry benefits from that. The contractor company has to go out and buy some more trucks and pitchforks and hammers and nails. So Home Depot and all the people, the vendors that they buy from, and Caterpillar. They got to buy some tractors and some backhoes and all that. So how do you say no to a good idea? Something that makes sense, that's going to benefit everybody.
But that's not what they're looking for. Let me ask Buck a question. So since you like, and we appreciate you always correcting us and make sure that we're saying things correctly. Fear monger.
No, you don't.
Is that the correct term? Fear monger.
Jackrabbit.
Fear monger. Is that the correct terminology?
For what?
For someone
what you do.
who is creating fear. No, for someone who is creating fear amongst people.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So basically that's what the job is. He's constantly turning the wheel of fear on these people. They're not, see, today I took somebody to a young lady. I picked her. She was my first run this morning, drive and Lyft. And I was taking her to clean a house. She said, "You're taking me to clean a house." When I pulled into the community, and that was right after you and I talked this morning.
Yeah, your first ride?
I took her into a community of cottages. All the houses or all the residents were cottages. They couldn't have been any more than about 700 to 1,000 square feet. And it was about 20 of them. The roads weren't paved. They were rocked and dirt. And she was going there to clean somebody's cottage.
Well,
okay.
Hey.
Now, the point I'm trying to make where Lee is going with this situation is they're not worried about him giving them nice clothes, cars, or any opportunities beyond driving a cement mixer truck or putting the stripy lines down on a road. The image that they have that they're the dominant race is at risk.
That is the
if they don't have him in there.
Say that again.
If they don't have him in there, they're at risk for not being dominant race.
Right. Well, it's not just having him in here. He's a consistent reminder that they could be at risk.
Damn right.
That's why the wall is so important, because every other race that's coming in is putting them at risk. Now think about it. And I didn't even know this about Nigerians. Nigerians and Indian, and I ain't talking about woo, 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 Indian.
India
or
Indians.
Coming here, yes. Or coming
not
here,
feather.
Not feather. Okay, not
Right,
Pocahontas. Okay,
Dot, not feather.
Not TP. Okay, or coming here writing code for our major corporations, the banks, and all the other corporations that we spend money buying products and they doing business all the way up to Wall Street. The majority of the people who are writing the code for them to use the computers to set revenue goals and doing everything else is not done by blacks, not done by whites, not done by Hispanics. They're done by Asians, Indians, and Africans.
Africans, really?
At a high level. And women. Yeah. I've met them. I'm not telling you some BS I read. I met them. I pick them up in the car. They are not even residents. They have HB1 visas, which give them 90 to 3 years residency in the United States of America to come in.
So they
and
can
work.
send their money back home.
Or wherever they send it.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Smart.
Well, yeah, on their part, but they're needed because this same ignorance that Lee is talking about when you're cranking the wheel for what you call them, Kentuckians, okay, is you're not putting in the school district that you need to be teaching coding.
Yep.
Like I said earlier, every business is going to the cloud. Jeff Bezos and the AWS team is doing 80% of their business based on cloud information storing and hosting of information that we need to function as a race, as a community, as an American, as a person.
The thing about the Democrats on a national level, and Lee was referring back to, the Democrats probably not doing so well, is that they got to change their game plan. Nationally, they come off too damn weak for me. And that has to change. And only because I say that because you look at someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
she's so
AOC, she fights. She fights back and gives it back to them. So I love her. I love Stacey Abrams. She fights her own way. She's like a Quiet Storm type approach, using a old format radio jingle.
Soft and warm. The Quiet Storm.
That's nice. So we're stupid. So when you look at
a bunch of radio guys,
it's too late. It's too late.
Forget about it.
But when you look at those type of figures who are able to make a dent and make movement and strides, it's because they are unapologetically themselves. They don't mind being themselves in the moment because we need original people. We need people like them to further the cause of the Democratic Party. No offense to the old guard. The old guard would take a olive branch and give it to the conservatives. Conservatives get a lighter and burn the shit up. And
why do you think AOC gets away with it?
I think she gets away with it. I think a lot of people in the party really like what she's doing, but it's a power struggle between obviously the old guard and the new guard. And I think that when you have that power struggle in between, one day the older guard has to sit back, just like someone sit back for them, and generation-wise, and let the other people come forward. Y'all can work hand in hand. I mean, some people don't want to retire until they, as Charlie Heston said about, guns. I'll retire with cold, dead hands. That type of thing. Yeah. It's a power struggle. I think she gets away with it because deep down inside, with other people coming into the Democratic Party, I believe they are for her. But again, it's that power struggle internally. So they got to get on the same page. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
She represents a certain portion of the voters. Mm-hmm. That's how she got in.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah. I think it's her I think because her district loves her, she knows she's not in jeopardy of losing her seat. Right. So she just goes all
she's
out
in
and
tune.
What the hell ever. Yeah.
She's in tune to her community.
Absolutely.
That's how you win.
Yeah, and they love her for that. So I'm not mad at her at all.
Right,
she can get it too, by the way.
Well, sure.
And
going back to what I said about Harold Washington, that type of ability to walk with kings and queens and have the common touch, she has that. She's connected to her community like before. They love her. They've always embraced her. So now it's a matter of her, what she's doing now on a national front. So we need warriors like that because, again, on a whole national-wise, Democrats come off too soft for me, and that has to change.
I agree.
Being politically correct and being laid back and listen, you don't get ahead, you don't move forward unless you step on some toes. The toes that you step on are the ones that need to be stepped on, the ones that are doing wrong, the ones that are doing nothing. And I say this about the Republicans and the Democrats. If you're not doing something positive, get the hell out of the way. Go home, get up under your covers, pull a pillow over your head, and go to sleep. But get the hell out of politics because you're not bringing anything good. You're not coming up with any solutions. You're just taking up space.
And I think age has a lot to do with it too. Age, because she's young and she's a little bit more fearless than some of the older. Now, when she gets to be 80 years old, she might be a little bit more fearful. But right now, she's young and she's feisty, and that's why I'd get her pregnant.
See, and I look at that the other way around. The older I get, the feistier I get. What you gonna do to me? Oh, hell yeah. What you gonna do to me? Take my job? I don't have a job. I'm self-employed. Fire me. Okay? So I ain't got nothing to lose. I'm a fighter. I'm going to say what I feel, what I hear, what I see, so that's my commitment. I've
But
always
the
been that way though.
but the conservative right has done a magnificent evil job of bringing the lie. They get on the same page. Say what you want about them. I don't like when they write to the Genghis Khan, but they get on the same page, that same mantra, and they work it.
I think it's because they got a whip that gets them all in line.
Yeah,
Which is a job.
Can I segue what Chris just said into talking about the Republican playbook?
Absolutely. We're going to make a transition here, Dr. Ron.
I mean, it's right on point. We've been talking about politics the whole time. And the last couple of days, I've been looking up, because I've been aggravated about some of the commercials that's been going on locally in the Chicagoland area. And I said, they got a playbook that they go by. And I went and started looking up some of the meat and potatoes of the Republican playbook. Okay, here we go. One of the first things that the Republicans do is find the concerns of parents, and they use those concerns to rally the parents. Okay.
I know you guys getting the same thing.
Hello?
Okay. It looks like we're back. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay. All right. So the Republicans rally the support of parents because they make the parents feel like that they have their back. Like one of the things that they talk about is rescind President Biden's harmful Title IX guidance that hurts girls' dreams to achieve excellence in sports. That's just one. There's a whole list of them, of the things that they talk about. Allow the Department of Justice to ensure federal funds are not being used to fund racist critical race theory curricula in violation of the Civil Rights Act. Promoting a fair and accurate historical curriculum based on the success and faults of our country's founding. So these are some of the things that they use to rile up parents. The second thing on the playbook is we need to end the mandates. This is a Republican playbook. And they want to try and stop all of the mask mandates, vaccination mandates in public schools. We've been doing this at federal level already. And I introduced a bill to prevent OSHA from instating its unconstitutional vaccine mandate. So they're using that as part of their playbook to rile people up. The third thing is we must continue to back the blue. Now, this is a big one here. They want to increase funding for police departments and protect qualified immunity for our law enforcement heroes. Okay, so then the other thing is, which White House tried to end through their policy reform bill, crime and particularly homicides have been spiked in Virginia and every other state in July. A USA Today poll found that crime, ahead of everything else, was the number one issue Americans are most concerned about. So they beat the fact that we got to make law enforcement more empowered. Number 4 on the playbook, we must continue to focus on the failures of the Biden economy. Now, we just talked about that a little while ago. The economic problems that we're having right now were a direct correlation to what 45 did when he was in office, and now the bill has come due. We have a 40 to 50% increase of expenses, but yet income is still the same. And this is a personal thing to me. They had a bill on the table to try and give a cost of living increase to all seniors that we have not had since 1985. And now the Republicans would not pass it, so the bill did not go through. So, but yet inflation has risen to the point where now we got to take our 1985 income and try and pay for stuff in 2022. The numbers don't match up. So that's something that they are definitely doing, trying to point their finger at everything that President Biden does to try and make it an evil wrong. And going back to what I found about, they have had enough of critical race theory being pushed onto their children. Only 16% of the Americans want their children taught critical race theory. But Democrats are siding with Rand Wingengarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, who threatened, "You can't keep us from teaching critical race theory." So they're using everything around critical race theory as a banner to cause an attack out of their playbook. Now I got something I wanna share with everybody on how this this critical race theory is definitely or this playbook is definitely being used by the Republicans. So y'all bear with me while I get this queued up here. Okay, all right. You should see something on the screen to share, Lee. If you bring that up. Okay, I'm gonna play this where everybody can. I don't know if they can still hear it or not. Can you all hear that?
No.
Okay.
All
right.
You have to
All right.
tell it on your end to.
Okay, hold on 1 minute.
Audio.
Stand by. I'm gonna do it again. 1 second here. Share screen, share audio. Bam. Okay, here we go. All right, you can bring it up now. All right, here we go. I'm gonna start the play.
Unmute it.
Okay, that would help, wouldn't it?
Other side. Okay.
The left fears more.
Okay, here we go.
Look like me.
Okay,
I'm
here
Richard
we go.
Irvin.
There you go.
When I ran for mayor, Mike Madigan campaigned against me. I beat him. Now Governor Pritzker's afraid that I'll beat him too. There's nothing the left fears more than Republicans who look like me and think like us. That all lives matter.
Okay, number one, out the playbook. All lives matter. Okay, straight out the Republican playbook.
That cops should be defended,
Defend the police. Make them heroes.
not defunded. That handouts keep people down.
Now, I got to stop it on this one for a period of time. They say no handouts. Now, he's running for, just to give you an idea who he is, he's a Republican that's running for the governor of the state of Illinois. Now, Republicans just gave $13 billion to Ukraine. Okay, $13 billion. But they don't think handouts are important in the United States. I just wanted to point that out. Let me finish this.
But maybe that's what liberal politicians want. I'm Richard Irvin, and I'm their worst nightmare.
Okay, so that's the the playbook in action. Okay, that's
Now,
the playbook in
give
action.
us a little background.
By the time I hit the 90 days, I had lost.
You say
Not that
the
background.
Give us a little background on Richard Irving. Who is he? I mean, what has he done?
well,
Tell
he
me
is
a little
the
bit about
governor.
it.
He is the governor of Aurora, and he was supposed to have been
Mayor, not governor.
Yeah, mayor. I'm sorry. Yeah, mayor. mayor.
And I didn't even have to correct you. That's so cool.
I don't even know how that slipped by you.
I was about to say something, then Lee jumped in.
Yeah,
okay. I'm sorry. I'll lay back moving forward.
Yeah, he
Thanks, Lee.
he
I'm the
was
criticizer here.
he's the
Don't step on my toes.
a war veteran. He came back and he was a lawyer, and according to some of his statistics, he was supposed to be real hard on law enforcement, you know, putting people in jail, cleaning up the city, you know, being a beast when it comes to
Did he do that in Aurora?
Well, that was the only place he did it at, supposedly. So then he came to find out when he was an attorney, he represented many criminals that should not have been represented, like, you know, child abusers, murderers, homicides. So, you know, they've been exposing it. When you run for something, they're going to go find your dirty laundry, and they did. But he is definitely been playing right out of the Republican playbook. Okay, he's using all those little catchphrases as we saw in his advertisement.
Tactics.
Yeah.
Isn't that what he's supposed to do, though?
Well, you know, if you're going to, you know, attack people for what they have done. Now, let me just say this: the governor of Illinois has done a magnificent job as far as he was governor during the pandemic. He did everything that he needed to do to keep more Illinoisans safe. You know, so going after him, he's been standing on his record. But these fear tactics that this guy is using, the governor didn't go after the police. He didn't do any of those things that he mentioned in his ad. That's not something that the governor was doing here in Illinois. Those are something that might be you can go after on a national level, but locally, this guy has been doing a great job. Now, do we have crime? Yes, all throughout the state, but every state does. Okay.
Yeah, you can make complaint. You can bring up the fact that there's crime here, crime there, and homelessness and all that shit, and it's true. But what is your solution?
Right.
Explain to me. Put your platform out so we can review it. The same thing is going on here in LA. There's two guys. One guy's a billionaire. He's running for mayor. And then there's a couple other people that are running as well. And they're both basically running on the homelessness problem here in Los Angeles and the crime. Okay. What are you going to do? Don't tell me what the problem is. We know that. So if you say, I'm going to fix the crime, give me specifics, details, outline what you're going to do. Then I can evaluate whether or not you're going to be the right guy. Or
you know what kills me about politicians when it comes to crime? They all say the same thing. The stupid thing. Oh, we're going to put more cops on the street.
And that's what this guy is saying.
That's not what stops crime.
Right.
All that does is lock people up after the fact. If you want to stop crime, you got to stop what causes the damn thing.
Yeah, and that's what this guy did in his first couple of commercials. He came out and said, I put more cops on the street in my town, and we got ahead of, we took back the projects, we stopped some of the criminal activity by putting more cops. Well, Chicago does the same thing. Chicago is constantly recruiting because they say we don't have the numbers of police on the street that we used to have because they're not allowed, you know, to beat up on people and do the things that cops used to do.
I was just gonna say that. It's like, who wants to be a cop nowadays?
Yeah.
When at any moment you could do something that could end up costing you your life or career or both.
But some of the old school cops needed to quit. You know, these guys you know, some of these guys were, you know, like, I don't know if you watched the national news just this week. They've got a cop in Michigan City that was wrestling with a guy, pulls out his gun and shot him in the back of the head.
Yeah, that was hard to watch.
Yeah. So I mean, but
Grand
that's
Rapids. That was in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Grand Rapids, Michigan. So you know the mentality.
26 years old. Hold on, real quick. 26 years old. He was a refugee from the Congo. So I don't know if you saw the video, but he was having a hard time understanding the instructions from the police officer, and so the police officer kind of got frustrated with him, and they started tussling, and then next thing you know, he's on the back.
First he claimed he tried to shoot him with a taser, but then he wound up with a bullet in the back of his head. So and the biggest issue about putting more cops on the street or empowering, the cops that have been old school cops, the first thing that they were taught in the academy is that no matter what black person you pull over, he did something.
What academy is that?
Man, the police academy.
All of them.
Yeah. Universally across the board. You stop them.
That's the unwritten.
Yes.
It sounds preposterous. Hey, it sounds preposterous, but
it does.
No, but it's the reality. That's reality. Police say whatever traffic stop you make of a black person, you're going to find something to make it stick. Because when they go to court, they ask the question, what was the probable cause that you stopped them? They were black. They were driving a fancy car.
If you're a cop, you have to make something. You have to make something up if you're a cop.
Yeah, or they're in a neighborhood where I know they don't belong. And they must be casing the area for burglary or theft or some type of criminal activity.
Yeah, we got a call from someone that identified somebody that looks like you. So show me your ID.
I remember as a kid growing up in the south suburbs of Chicago, and we used to have to drive through certain communities and certain towns. And there were certain communities that we did not want to go through, because we know if the cops saw us, they were going to stop us. So like if we were going from Harvey to Chicago Heights, you had to go through, Hazelcrest, Homewood. These were all communities that had white police officers, and they were going to stop us. Where you coming from? What you doing? And that's been the mentality of police officers in this region and across the country for such a long time.
Well, that's small towns in general. That's small towns in general. They'll stop you.
Yeah, but even in big cities, New York, Chicago, LA, you forgot about Rodney King?
Yeah, but Rodney King was in the city. But I'm saying that a lot of times it's the smaller suburbs, and not even necessarily suburbs. Like I say in here in Atlanta, there's Atlanta City, but the cops in Atlanta City have too much to deal with to be stopping people just for bullshit. But you'll find right outside of Atlanta, Marietta, anywhere in Cobb County, they'll stop a Negro just for anything. I mean, but it's not Atlanta City proper.
And they'll do it in any major city. You forget about some of these atrocities that have taken place in major cities when they choke a man on the street for selling cigarettes. Now, this is before we had as much media, as much media as we have. There are cases where some of these old cops, man, will take you completely down and out. And now they're getting caught on video and social media and things like that that's coming to the surface. So do we need more police with that type of mentality? Now, there have been case studies that have been done on police departments to determine what their level of sensitivity is about their job, and they're finding out that they have gotten failing grades across the country, because when they look at people of color, that they don't have the right mentality towards dealing. You run across a person in a Mercedes-Benz, got every right to have a Mercedes-Benz, and they're going to stop him and ask him where he going, what he doing. Why? Why did you stop me? And if that person in that Mercedes Benz is not careful, he's gonna wind up with a confrontation that he should not have to deal with just because he owns a Mercedes Benz. Go ahead, Buck.
Now if any of us, I know that I'm not the only one who's ever talked to a cop about this sort of thing. They'll tell you that a lot of times it's not necessarily their own personal views, but the fact that, or their own biases or whatever, but the fact that their bosses are riding their ass to get more and more arrests all the time. More arrests.
It's called a
more
quota.
Right. Quota, more traffic stops, more everything. And so if they're in a neighborhood that's not a high crime neighborhood, then they're not going to be able to meet their quota that month and they're going to get in trouble. So what do? They're instructed, go where the crime is, and that's go to a high crime area. And that just happens to usually be an African American or Latino oriented area. Yeah. And so, they got to meet their quotas. And it's just, it's unfair, but that's just kind of the way it is. It's
unfortunately, and they're pushing for more people to have that type of mentality. Now, to bring this to a full circle, I wanted to talk about what Lee was talking about earlier. We've got some elections that are coming up in the immediate future this year that we need to focus on. Can you bring that map up, Lee?
Wow. Look what the Facebook user said.
Okay.
Bigger guns.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to point out in Georgia, this is in your backyard, Buck. The incumbent, the Reverend Raphael Warnock. Okay, he's running for re-election this year, and they've got Herschel Walker, running against him. But guess what? The part that's scary is Herschel is winning. The polls right now saying that Herschel is turning the tide in his favor.
Well, Herschel has celebrity on his side.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they're spending a lot of money. And again, the party that controls the message wins. And you got Donald Trump out there pumping him up. He's done a couple of rallies down there. So, it's not surprising to me. But listen, for everybody in Georgia, if you can hear us, send donations to support the Reverend, because it's going to come down to a media war in terms of commercials and getting the message out.
And you know what? I'm tired of seeing the commercials already, bro.
I'm sure.
And they just started. It's like every other commercial. That's why
Lee, did you see that?
I DVR everything so I can fast forward. Sorry.
Right. Lee, did you see that article I sent out to the team about DeSantis, what he said about Stacey Abrams and the Cold War?
No, I didn't see that. Let me pull it up.
I put it in the group. I sent the email to Chris. And Chris, if you could forward that to him. I didn't put it in the private chat. I just asked you to pull it up. So while you're looking for that, I want to kind of respond to, one of the situations and everything that you guys are talking about, starting with Dr. Ron, through Buck and everyone else. I think before we go batshit crazy about what's happening to us or how we're being attacked, we have to ask the question, what role do we play in this attack? I was looking at that video not long ago when Dante Wright was stopped by the lady who was a trainer for the police department and said she accidentally pulled her gun instead of her taser. And I would have to say, if I was in her position, he may have gotten shot. This guy was kicking and acting a fool. My thoughts were, let him go ahead and try to drive the car off and shoot the tires out. She said she looked over to her partner, saw that he was in a panic mode, and that's why she thought about pulling the taser. Mm-hmm. Okay? So unless you're there, you can't justify one against the other. But I think that the roles that we want to play as African Americans sometimes aren't the roles that are in our best interests. And sometimes we have to be careful about what it takes to get people's attention, because a lot of us, especially in these communities.
So DeSantis is saying Cold War is coming if Stacey Abrams is elected governor.
Right.
See, but again, like
What does that
I keep
mean?
saying, it's messaging, fear tactics.
Mhm.
You know, putting the fear out there. Cold War. When you hear that phrase, Cold War, what do you think of?
Russia, and the United
I
States.
think,
Yeah.
Right.
But,
So they're gonna, put her in the category of one of our arch enemies, Russia.
Right.
Back in the Germany
a lot of
days.
people feel that way. I had
Of
a bad
course.
cold day in hell before we elect a Negro to be governor of our great state of Georgia. I mean, that's really the attitude. It's like,
Yeah. And you see this map where the red states are and the blue states are. These are upcoming elections for this year. And Kentucky, Paul Rand is running. Indiana.
Paul Rand, you mean Rand Paul?
Rand Paul.
Oh.
I said that so you can correct me.
You sure you did.
See if you're awake.
Yeah, we got North Carolina, we got South Carolina. These are all places, Florida. These are all places where Senate seats are open. And if you live in one of these states, you need to actively get involved. We've been preaching this for a couple of weeks now. We're going to keep on preaching it. There is a lot at stake coming up in this next election. And like Lee said in the beginning of this show this evening, he can easily see the Democrats losing the midterm. And that's because people don't have that sense of urgency or that fear that they need to have to push back against what the Republican playbook is doing. Now, I'm going to be an equal opportunity person. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the Democratic playbook and what they're not doing and what they're doing that will, make us aware of where they're falling short. And we said some of it tonight. Quite a few people on the panel tonight said the Democrats are just weak, in a lot of areas. They too busy trying to reach across the aisle.
That was him.
And reaching across the aisle ain't getting them nothing. So, I'm going to be, looking at some of their strong suits and weak suits coming up on next week. But I just wanted to let you know that we got a problem and we need to, we need to pay attention to the messaging that is coming out at us and what subliminally, you gonna correct me, Buck, that's going in, subliminally. But something that happened this week, and I thought it was hilarious. Dr. Oz is running in Minnesota, and Donald Trump sent his support out to, Dr. Oz. And the only reason why he sent his support out to Dr. Oz was because Dr. Oz had great ratings with his television show. That was what he said. Oh, he's going to beat whoever. He's going to murder him, because he had a great odds on his television show. That's the only reason. He's backing him. And then Dr. Oz, said many, many times that he didn't support Trump because Trump did not, believe in the science that Dr. Fauci was talking about dealing with the pandemic. So how's a medical doctor who believes in science want to accept the support from somebody who doesn't believe in science? So I just wanted to throw that out there. We got some more to talk about.
Trump will always seize the moment and associate himself with something that he perceives as something hot, something that's, happening, that's moving forward. So he's got to be a part of that. Again, he's a media pimp. He knows when to jump on the horn. and do his thing and become a part of something that he thinks is good. Now, Dr. Oz, obviously it's a household word. His name is very, very popular. But then there's also been some scandals about him and some of the products that
Exactly.
he has quoted
Endorsed.
to have endorsed is
Right.
bullshit. So
I love him
be
though.
careful with that.
I love him.
Why? I think he's fake.
I
but
think
that's
he's
just
great.
me.
But one of the
I think
things I want to go back to come behind Dr. Ron in reference to the position that we put ourselves in. I've had a chance to meet 50 Cent. He's been in a lot of interesting situations, from getting shot 9 times to becoming a critical movie production guy. And I think sometimes one of the things that hurt us, whether it's the hip hop community or the influences that are out there, we seem to keep blowing ourselves up in the wrong tent. Our means of representation cannot be based on drugs, being locked up. We've got to start changing the narrative of how we're being judged, because that's our fault. That is something that we have to address in our own community, starting with someone like Lee Michaels that says, let's put this forum together, 6 guys talking. Let's show some intelligence amongst Black men being able to have conversations about politics, show business, and the list goes on. We've got a guy here with a doctorate. We've got a professor here. We got an imaging pro here. We've got a guy that worked at one of the top radio stations in the country, WLS. We got Lee Michaels and myself. And the thing of it is, it's not that we want people to do what we do as broadcasters, marketers, or content creators, but understand you have to pick and choose who you're going to have as your leader. And I'm going to have to be critical of the Black race. We have been very bad at picking the people we want to follow. And we got to stop.
For example,
I just said the likes of I don't want to call 50 out by name, but I'm talking about the hip hop community. For instance, let me say that, okay? Because once again, there's a portrayal that makes it easy for the DeSantis and everybody else to come against us, and we can't fight it off. We've got a professor sitting on this panel that works at Kennedy King that is teaching kids how to get into broadcasting. We have to be able to take the message and say, you don't have to be a dope dealer to be successful. You don't have to be a hip hop artist to be professional.
I can't even say that I disagree with you. I can't even say that. I wanted to be like, well, don't pick on rappers again. But you know what? Damn, you're right.
I'm not,
on
and
that
that's
one.
what I'm saying.
Well,
You're
look,
right on that one. That's for that.
but see, you got
It's
to
hard to
understand
defend it. It's really hard to defend.
It is.
what just made history in the last few days.
Me agreeing with Mike
Supreme
Love.
Court justice.
Oh,
Well, that too. But 3 very wealthy white men went into space, paid $55 million for the trip, another $2,500 a day for meals and other expenses on top of that.
I missed that.
$55 million per person.
Right.
And this is just like a travel excursion.
All right.
You know,
On the
and they
space
want to
station.
be called astronauts.
Right.
Went up
Okay,
to the
so-
space station. Yep.
Exactly. So there's $160 million being shot up into space. Think about what that could do to help better our communities, our society. Could that money have been spent on something more valuable than they're feeding your egos? And then there's a line of people, wealthy people, who are standing in line to be on the next flight.
Blowing it. Just blowing it.
And we're going up there to the space station where it's Russians that we're
we're losing you, Lee. Oh.
Okay, well, until Lee thaws out, let me jump in.
Okay. Cut all ties.
Oh.
Yeah.
He's on Wi-Fi. He knows better too.
Yeah. Well, let me say this, and I want to go back to the point I'm making, and what he's saying is absolutely correct. But let's look at the Supreme Court justice. Let's look at how many kids are smart enough. If you're smart enough to write some rhymes, you're smart enough to get in law school. You know,
that might be a little bit of a stretch, Mike.
Well, what I'm saying, I'm talking about the level of creativity, because it's all about defining the words that you're putting before the people. You're not just saying the rhymes, you're painting a story. If you have the ability to paint
for the
a
good
story,
rappers, that's for the good rappers. Not all rappers.
Not all rappers. I agree with you. But the fact of the matter is, we need to get more African American kids looking at law. Law is the biggest thing that Dr. Ron keeps talking about that's taking us down.
Yep.
And it's the smallest percentage of interest for our millennials and Gen Zs and X's.
I bet if they knew how much money lawyers make, the good ones, they'd probably be interested.
Come on, boy. Preach.
But you know, the lawmakers, you know, are very consistent with what their agenda is. And this is something that we keep overlooking now, even in talking about the Republican playbook. Not one place on that playbook that they say that they were interested in doing what the people need. They said that they would stir up the interest and the aggravation of people to get them to support them. But they did not say anywhere where they would be like, okay, we're gonna find out what Professor Reggie Miles' needs are. Okay, Black ownership. How do we address Professor Reggie Miles' needs and make sure that he gets what he wants from the lawmakers? Right. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They're not thinking about what we need. You know, and they can care less.
But we don't need to depend on them for that, Dr. Ron.
Well,
what happens?
We have to have the legislature in place in order to make it happen. Because if we don't, we're going to run into this thing called the Constitution. It ain't about us. And professors say that all the time.
Right. But the fact of the matter is, it's where your interest lies. We're all old enough in this forum to remember our mothers sitting on the side of the beds before we go to bed and say, you could be president one day, and you could be this, and you can be that.
Mine never said that, though.
Well, I mean,
you ain't gonna be. Don't be trying to fool yourself, boy.
She knew better.
Old nappy-headed boy. That's what she said.
Ron, that was pretty quick.
Yeah, it was.
That was pretty quick.
She looked into your eyes, and she did not want to lie to you that day.
Said,
now she'll lie to you the next day, but not
don't
that
think
day.
about it.
Yeah, don't
seriously, guys, we really got to get the message, because what's happening is Netflix and all these movie producers, they understand there's an audience out there that will eat it up when we're robbing banks, when we're dope dealers, when we're handling crime, when we're getting arrested. And then what happens is they're not going to guys like Reginald Hutland. They're not going to some of these other guys who have spent their time in motion picture production. They're going and getting, like I said, I'm not against rap artists, but they go and they think they get the street valued guy because he can tell the story best. We don't, as African Americans, if you know anything, if you've been close to any city, you already know how drugs are dealt. You know what an 8-ball is. You know what weed is.
Yep.
We don't need to be educated on the whole drug game.
Well,
And that's
you know,
what
here's
in
the
the
thing,
side
though.
pocket.
Here's the
Yeah.
thing, though. If you ask filmmakers why they do stuff like that, and they'll tell you because there's a lot of
And not
violence.
getting filmmakers.
Huh?
That's my
They're
point.
They're getting storytellers that
They're getting story. That's why I'm
Yeah.
going back to the Buck. The thing that the people that they're getting. Reginald Hutland grew up in East St. Louis. He was one of the directors of the Academy Awards not long ago. See, they don't go and get him. I mean, he did House Party. Him and his brother. They had a production company was out when I was in New York. They don't consistently. Netflix is not interested in getting these guys consistently.
Right? No,
They're
but yeah,
trying to go.
You let me finish though. What I was saying was that there's a lot of violence in America, and it's American TV primarily because it's not necessarily the same around the world.
I agree.
On American TV, violence sells because Americans have an appetite for it, and so that's why they
keep doing gangster movies then.
Huh?
Go do Italian shit. Why we got to be at the forefront? Go do they shit. We don't need to be at the forefront of that situation for them to make money if they're not going to put us in this position to make the money. They're
But
just
if they do
using
that,
us.
then the black actors won't get any.
Okay,
work,
come
and
on.
It just kind of puts.
You just answered it. And we got to get beyond that. That's why Tyler Perry bought that army camp and turned it into a movie production. Army base or whatever it was. That's what has to happen.
Yeah.
Fort McPherson, it was called.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Elon Musk said he would buy your Street News Now for several $1 billion. He likes what you're doing with it. What price would you settle for?
Bite me.
At least we'd be all electric. We'd be on solar power.
Not for sale, bro.
Well, he just tried to buy Twitter, so I figured your station would go cheap.
Yeah, well, call me tomorrow.
He put out a release that he doesn't know if he's going to be able to pull it off. Like it'd be too much money.
Well, that's because he fell out with the board. They had just put him off the damn board. Then he came back and said, "I'll just buy your ass."
Right.
But he doesn't know if he's going to be able. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to buy it.
He didn't want to be on the board. That was
no. It's because if he was on the board, they'd limit his ownership stake to I think 10% or something like that.
Something
already had 9%. Yeah.
Right, but so if he's not on the board, then he can own as much as he wants. That's why he didn't want to be on the board.
You know what's really crazy? Does everybody on this panel have Netflix?
Of course.
No.
I do, but I never watch it.
Nope.
Go on it when you get a chance. They have more African TV shows and movies than they do from African Americans.
Say it again.
They have
more production out of Africa.
Production from African TV. Yeah, African.
Really?
They have a whole going there. When you go down the thing, where it scales the drama and whatever it is, they got a whole thing of all African TV and movies.
Yeah, but I hate reading subtitles, so screw that.
Well, you ain't got to read the subtitles. Why don't you take the time and look at it?
They'll be English. No,
that's the whole point. Yes, it's in English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they do speak English in Africa, but yes, they do.
But mostly it's French though. French is the primary.
Yeah, I have a problem with the accent. And maybe it's just my hearing going back.
But that's not the issue at hand, guys. The issue at hand is if Netflix has to do that, the message is we don't have enough product from you.
Right.
That's the message. Don't get the message convoluted.
It could be.
It definitely is.
But that's another show. But I'd like to dig into that a little bit.
Hold on, Lee. I didn't mean to interrupt. You know what the whole argument was with Amy Schumer and Monique? When that thing fell out, when they wanted to give her $600,000 and they gave Amy Schumer $1 million, they said, Monique, when a white person comes to Netflix, they're going to go to 6 to 12 other shows to watch. We don't have enough programming. So if they come see your comedy special, after that, they're gone. They're gone. This is a numbers game.
Yeah.
So if they don't leave Monique's comedy and then go see another black movie or go see something else, then why would they pay you more money? It's the same thing with Joe Rogan. The success of Joe Rogan is to get white folks to come to the network and then look at all their other programs. It's the same thing with Howard Stern. It's a lead in. See, we don't create the lead in. I'm going to tell you something. Wall Street needs us. Look at the TV commercials that are on television right now.
Yeah, a lot of African Americans on.
It's a lot of that's right.
Yeah.
Because they got the numbers. I worked at a network. That's the only thing a network cares about is numbers. If you see in more and more black people, that means they got some data from Nielsen, Arbitron, or whoever the hell it is that's telling them that they buying a shit load of rolls of toilet paper.
I was about to say, they finally realized that black people spend money disproportionately.
They got it in numbers. They ain't got to realize it.
Yeah.
It's in numbers.
They've known that for a long time.
They've known it for a long time, but they never wanted to advertise towards black people because they didn't want black customers.
Well,
Well,
the thing
that's
is,
true.
you don't care about black customers when you got revenue.
Well, no. See, they used to think that black customers would scare off the white customers.
That's exactly it. But the revenue's bigger than the people that'll be scared off. They don't give a shit if Hank leaves.
It's
Bye,
changed.
Hank. Bye.
It's changed. Yeah. They realize that the color of money is more important than the color of somebody's skin.
Now, I need to ask a question here. Facebook user. Who the hell is Facebook user? How you get a name like that?
No,
They don't want to be
he probably made a
identified.
comment. No, he probably made a comment on Facebook, and when it transferred over, the name didn't come over.
Well, how's that? Because I see other Facebook comments here.
I don't know.
I'm trying to understand how that's possible. How's that
We'll
happen?
figure that out later on.
Yeah, and what is the question?
Yeah, right. Ask
You
the
got-
question, but tell us who you
Oh,
are.
it's Val.
Oh, Val, what the hell are you doing? How you do that? You know me.
She's anonymous.
Inquiry minds
Anonymous.
want to know.
She's anonymous. You know, she had a birthday this week, so she's undercover right now.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's why they didn't identify her. But guys, I don't want to lose the moment in pitching the fact that we've got to get our own lane, and it cannot be based around drugs, being in prison, being low income. We have to be on the same thing. There's another show, Courtney Vance, is that his name? That's married to
Courtney B. Vance, yes.
Courtney B. Vance. He's got a show coming on AMC Plus called
He's
like
married to who?
61st Street.
Right.
Who's he married to?
What's the
Angela
lady?
Bassett.
Angela
Oh.
Bassett. You see what I'm saying?
I don't
Lucky
say that
man.
name.
And he's playing an attorney. See, we got to switch the roles instead of the YT playing the attorney that's representing us. And then we playing the poor, pitiful me. Yeah, y'all just blamed it on a black dude. Yeah, y'all always doing that. Stop that. That role is dead. We don't need to be in that role anymore. We need to be judges. We need to be attorneys. We need to be businessmen. You have to portray the role you want to be in life. And the same thing goes for that. You don't let them pull you in. Money ain't gonna get you in heaven. You can't buy your way in heaven.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you better be thinking about what you put into your life right now to be successful.
Ah.
Think
Well, you
about
know,
that for a minute.
Well, you know, it goes back to controlling our own narratives.
Come on, man.
So it was in between piece on AMC, and it talked about blackface on stage and in movies. And it talked about people like Al Jolson, these old school people back in the day, and how Fred Astaire, for example, really admired Bill Bojangles Robinson, but because of the fact that he was white and Bill was black, that Fred had more opportunities, obviously, than he did. And then they show, I've never seen this piece before until I saw it last night. They showed Fred Astaire in blackface.
Oh my
I've never
God! When
seen
I
it.
see that on TMC, man,
TMC, yeah, right. TMC, correct.
It's crazy.
TMC, correct. Yes, it's insane. And going back to Bill, I'm sorry, going back real quick. Go back to Bill Bojangles Robinson. He worked in blackface, but at one point he just said, "You know what? I'm going to go out on stage and not have on blackface." Also depicted in the movie Bojangles that the late great Gregory Hines did years ago. So you see these pivotal points of where blackface was vital to a lot of these people being successful, but the fact that it was out of our control, they did it because
we
they
don't have that problem now.
Right. So we have more control now than we did back then. So there really is no excuse. We can control the narrative, control our roles, and control the storyline.
Oh,
really?
Really?
I did not want to watch Power when it first came out back in the 2015 or 2014, whatever it was. Because I was like, I don't want to see a show about drug dealers and all this other stuff. But people kept saying, "Oh, it's the best." It was like when Empire was big too. So I just posted a question one time. Was that, what's better, Empire or Power? Everybody was like, "Power, Power, Power, Power." So I was like,
but
okay,
see, that's something that they can relate to because it's in the hood. You got to be able to relate things.
It was just the fact that it was a good story. That all the whole violence and like the
Have you ever lived in the hood?
Yes, I live in the hood now. What are you talking about?
So you understand what hood relationships are. Everybody knows each character in there, right? Once again, how many professors are shown on television? How many guys named Ron Ford are on that has a doctorate? How many Chris Bases are on reading news?
No, there should be. There should be more. And in Power Book 2, the son Tariq goes to college, and you see a lot of that. You do see a lot of that.
And then they trying to bring him back in to get into the drug game. Stop putting that nonsense in our neighborhoods, in our children's heads. Stop it.
I can't disagree with you on that, but what I'm saying is that these are good stories, even though they're. What's so funny, Ron?
I'm laughing at the professor.
I wasn't looking at the professor. What, professor?
Professor.
He done froze himself. He froze himself.
Spit it out, brother.
Man, listen. I've been listening. I'm cool. I'm gonna just lay back and listen.
No, don't freaking lay back. You out here teaching our kids how to get into broadcasting and doing this stuff. That's what we need to get done.
Well, the fight. Listen, y'all know I'm an old time cat. All right, I'm an old time cat. And there's a lot of things that have been pushed up on the rug. They need to be back out. They need to be put back. Okay, so I don't, like the power and all that stuff, all the mayhem and the chaos and stuff. Okay, don't try to legislate or regulate that. What we need to be fighting for is more opportunities to put the positive stuff on there so people can have choices. We don't have choices now. There are no choices. Everything that comes, boom. We got $50 doing this thing. He making plenty money, but there's no choice, no other choice to look at anything else. Everything that comes out to us in the Black community is always about some kind of, something crazy. There will not be another Cosby Show. And so that's what we need to be fighting for, another Cosby Show. Yeah, I mean, I ain't talking about in Bill Cosby in particular, but a positive show. Okay, you got The Chi, messed up. You got Power, messed up. You got P-Valley, messed up. Everything that we got, everything that we have going, messed up,
That's popular.
Yeah, everything that's messed up, but there's no balance anywhere else. So we should be fighting. We should be fighting for an outlet so we can put some positive stuff on there so people can have a choice.
Well, but you know what? You're right. And it's on us as content creators and others out there to create this content. Don't worry about distribution anymore because you got all these different streaming services now. They're looking for content. And if you put together some good programming, Roku and I can't even name how many different.
I'm just
Go
telling
to
you,
your
though,
smart
I just
TV.
recently seen on
Yeah.
on this African network. I don't even know, but it was some African network. I seen the story. I seen the story of this. It was a good love story of this man who had a snob for a woman, and then he fell in love with this other woman that had, you know, kids, and whose husband was treating her wrong. And it was really, really good. The drama that was going, I mean, it was some stuff that like is relatable that happens. Nobody got killed. It was no garden tools or no female dogs being referred to in none of this, and everyone was a human being. They were persons. And so I would think that if we could see some of the things that that our people make from the international side, it might be better. I think one of the best books that I've ever read was the great one from the great author Chinua Achebe called Things Fall Apart. And what pieces of information, entertainment, educational pieces do we have outside of the regular mayhem that's popular, that, you know, people, they keep making money off of? You know, every one of our top celebrities and stuff like that. You know, you got Mr. Puff Daddy, he's like supporting Ciroc. And then you can go down the list of all these people that's doing some illicit, something crazy. They're doing one thing positive on one hand, but then they got another negative in the other hand. You know, so it's like it's keeping us out of whack with anything with what we want to do. I got this one kid in my classroom. I mean, not this one young man, this high school student that they've been, and the millennials got it. This young man wants to be a media mogul already. And in one of his speeches, he gave me a conversation where he talked about the greatest of all time. And so, and I'm just running through it right quick. He was paraphrasing, and he said people get into these senseless arguments with these basketball players over the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, LeBron, and all this stuff. He said, look, I'm going to change it. I'm going to look at it differently. And he said, because what I might see is going to be different from what somebody else is going to see. He said, because there can be many GOATs. He said, just call it the greatest of a time. I almost fainted in the classroom.
Yeah, that's kind of genius.
This kid is 17 years. This kid is 16, 17 years old. He's the greatest of a time. There's no argument. They're all great, but you're great for a time. Mm-hmm. And it still spells GOAT.
Yep.
It still spells GOAT.
Amen.
So we got to come into things that's, listen, our future is going to be made brighter once we see these young people that's in the ground. I mean, young people that's coming up now. We got to strengthen their roots, and we can't allow other people to strengthen and water these roots. We have to give them the sustenance that they need. What are the traditions that we have in our society that we need to continue to pass on? See, because we're the only people that's always changing every 5 goddamn. Oh, I'm sorry.
It got you.
Yeah, we change every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, and we're the first ones that's always saying, well, you know, stuff is evolving. We got to do this. We don't ever want to hold on to anything. Okay. At no time. Okay. Do we learn from any past that what we've been dealing with? Okay. No. They got a movie, you know, y'all was talking about this Republican agenda, right? We just saw on Showtime just a little while ago. We saw the story of the ray guns. And the last 2 episodes laid out what the Republican agenda. Go back, refer people back to the ray guns and look at the last 2 episodes of that. Everything that you're seeing today is just a repeat of what this man and what under that Make America Great Again, that code words, that documentary explain what the code words mean. All this, it put all that stuff out. We need to have that. We don't have they don't put to the forefront our great Black historians anymore. You know, they give us bits and pieces about this person or the next or this last person, but they don't tell us about John Henry Clark, Amos Wilson. They don't tell us about some of these other people that laid out some things. They don't tell us to go back, and we don't tell ourselves to go and look at the stuff of something of what our great historians dealt with. We got to start saying, you know, we got to start directing our people back to others that have written about us, so we can start thinking differently. We can't keep staying in the now.
Yes. And you know, nowadays, modern day, Blackish was outstanding. Sometimes you got to go look for it, but it was a great piece. It was well done by our people, the producers. They put a great show together. So
It was
there's
your
others
Cosby
out
show.
there. Yeah, it's a great show. So there are others out there, you know.
Yeah.
So people in our generation, we have, because there's so many outlets to find entertainment, you got to look for what makes sense. I mean, we ain't gonna like the Powers all the time, but then we ought to be diverse. I mean, I wish they'd make more westerns. I like that movie they brought out a little while back. You know, that was a great western that they.
Or They Fall.
Yeah, I mean, so we got some stuff out there coming out, but it's just not enough.
Yeah, so the
Speaking of
people
great
that-
shows, gentlemen, you guys having a great discussion, but I've got to go. You guys can keep on going. I mean, I just have to bow out. You guys have a great week.
Just waiting for everybody to kind of tie things up, but the show is over. And thanks to everyone who tuned in tonight. We do this every Thursday, 6 p.m. on the West Coast and 9 p.m. on the East Coast and everything in between. We call it Six Guys and You. You are a major part of the show. Without you, it's just six guys sitting there talking stuff to each other. So thank you for being a part of the show, and tell a friend, spread the word, like, share, and subscribe. And definitely check us out on YouTube. We're trying to grow the YouTube channel. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's SNN or Street News Now. Six Guys and You. Good night. Be safe and stay strong. Okay.